رمضان يا خير الشهور يا فضل رحمن غفور
أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم Alhamdulillah, Summa Alhamdulillah, that we're blessed once again to witness this holy month of Ramadan, the month in which Allah Almighty sent down the Holy Quran to our beloved Master, Holy Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Yesterday I started talking about Ramadan related matters and the FAQs, the frequently asked questions pertaining to the concept of fasting and everything related to this month. So for today's dars, I'll continue with that same subject matter. I have few FAQs with me, so I'll go over those. And towards the end, we will have 10-15 minutes for live questions. And everyone and anyone can ask any questions at that point. The dars part, as I have previously announced, the evening dars is going to be in English. The Fajr dars, which I deliver in the morning, is only in Urdu. Evening dars is only in English. So to continue the subject matter, one question which is received is regarding taking homeopathy medicine in the form of drops. Does this break one's fast if they're fasting and they take homeopathy drops? It does break the fast. The rule of thumb to remember is that anything entering the body would break the fast. Anything exiting the body does not, but anything entering the body would effectively break the fast. For matters related to itikaf, I will inshallah ta'ala, speak on this matter once we're edging closer towards the end of the second ashra, inshallah ta'ala. But just to share a few points still. Some people say that is it necessary to fast for the whole month of Ramadan if you're intending to sit for itikaf? It's not necessary. For example, if somebody was sick in the first 2 ashras of Ramadan, but they are fine in the last ashra and they want to sit for itikaf, they can. They can sit for itikaf. So fasting in the previous ashras before itikaf is not a compulsory requirement. However, when you do sit for itikaf, then if you want to do the masnoon itikaf, the itikaf that Holy Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam did, then you should keep the fasts. Otherwise, what you'll do is a form of worship, but it's not going to be the same itikaf like that of Holy Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Regarding fidya, it is not necessary that when it is given to an individual, that it is mentioned that, okay, we're giving you fidya money. Fidya is a type of sadaqah, but it has a very specific purpose. It goes towards the feeding of masakin. Now, who is a miskin? Miskin, the definition of miskin is very broad. Someone who does not express their need. Someone who is in need of financial help, but they keep it to themselves and they don't ask for help. If someone is considered as a miskin. Another person would be someone who has a job, but they don't make enough to make the ends meet, is also considered a miskin. Sometimes we think that miskin is someone who's homeless, who is hungry. They all fall under this category, but the definition of miskin is very broad. Some people say that is it okay for them to just give the fidya to their relatives? In our Jamaat, alhamdulillah, because of the blessing of Khilafat, we have a system in place. And the system or the Nizam Jamaat is that anyone who has to give fidya, then they should give fidya to the local chapter, the local Jamaat, finance secretary. And that way, Jamaat channels it to, wherever the fidya needs to go. Regarding Laylatul Qadr, inshallah ta'ala, I intend to do an entire dars on Laylatul Qadr. So I'm gonna leave any question related to Laylatul Qadr until that dars of mine. which I intend to deliver inshallah ta'ala somewhere in the second ashra. Somebody asked regarding doing collective dua at the time of just before iftar. There is no hadith that says that Holy Prophet ﷺ or the Khulafa Rashidun did it. There is no harm in it either, but it's not a must-do practice. It's not necessary that a collective dua has to be done. Just the same way, it's not necessary that it shouldn't be done. So it's left completely up to, the individuals or the local chapters, whatever they're comfortable with, they can have that. Usually we have observed that there is no collective dua every single day. But that doesn't mean that that time can be spent on chit-chatting and socializing. I mentioned yesterday as well that the time after after Asr Salat all the way till Maghrib Salat is a very short span of time, and in that span of time we should be focused on remembering Allah Ta'ala and praying. Even now when you're listening to this dars, in your heart of hearts, you should be reading Durood Sharif, Salat al-Nabi, you should be praying to Allah Almighty, whatever it is that you need prayers for. Whether it could be about your health or the health of your loved one, elderly parents. It could be about an upcoming exam. It could be about landing a good job. It could be about bringing your next generations, to the masjid, attaching them to the Nizam of Khilafat. Whatever it is, whether you have some sort of difficulty at home, whatever your difficulty is, utilize this time frame. Utilize this time frame in praying to Allah Ta'ala for those things. Taraweeh. Regarding Taraweeh, this question has come up. Is Taraweeh a must? It's not a must. It's optional. So you can do Taraweeh. You can choose not to do Taraweeh. What one should do is the Tahajjud Salah. Some people say, if I do Taraweeh, do I still need to get up for Tahajjud? Well, the more the better. But the real stuff is Tahajjud Salah. Holy Prophet ﷺ used to perform Tahajjud Salah. The Khulafa al-Rashidun, they used to perform Tahajjud Salah. Taraweeh was actually started at the time of Sayyidina Umar al-Faruq radiyallahu ta'ala, the second Khalifa. And it was to make things easier for those people who used to work in the fields. Farmers, laborers, they had a very difficult task throughout the day. And by evening time, they were done, exhausted. So they came to the Khalifa of the time and they said, sir, if it is okay, can we just, it's difficult for us to wake up for Tahajjud, but we don't want to be bereft of any sawab, of the reward, if, we can be permitted, if we can just pray in the evening. And Hazrat Umar radiyallahu ta'ala then said that, it's better that these people are brought together under the roof or under one imam. So they have an imam who's leading them in collective prayer. This is how Taraweeh Salat, was established. How many rakat is something which is always contended between, different schools of thought in the Muslim community. Holy Prophet ﷺ always offered 8 raka'at of tahajjud followed by 3 raka'at of witr. He didn't do 20. There are some books which are not as reliable as Sahih Bukhari or Muslim. They do speak of 20 raka'at. But Holy Prophet ﷺ, as far as most authentic ahadith are concerned, did not perform 20 raka'at. Based on that, in Jamaat-e-Ahmadiyya, we also offer 8 raka'at of Taraweeh Salat. And we're not the only ones. There are other schools of thought, other sects within Islam who also offer 8 rakat instead of 20. The purpose of Taraweeh Salat. It was later on that it became the practice that in the month of Ramadan, during the Taraweeh Salat, that Quran would be recited from start to finish. What's the purpose behind it? The purpose is that this is the month of Quran. This is the month in which Quran was revealed to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This is the month, year after year, every single year, Hazrat Jibreel would come to Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and would revise the entire Quran, whatever of the Quran that had been revealed up until that point. Which is the reason why we should also be revising the Quran in this month. Let me plug in the national initiative here. The National Talim al-Quran and Tarbiyat Department, in conjunction with one another, are requesting that members of the Jamaat should register online. This is just to motivate you, that you will do your best in at least completing one entire revision of the Holy Quran. one entire recital of the Holy Quran in this month. And one entire recital is not even that big of a goal. We should do more than that. Holy Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam every single night used to recite Surah Al-Baqarah and Surah Al-Imran in Tahajjud Salah. Other than Ramadan. This was his practice. So think how much Quran he used to recite, right? So give Quran the precedence, make this your bread and butter, and you'll find blessings of Allah Ta'ala coming your way, inshallah. So once again, please register online. Sadr Saab, I believe, has shared the link in the Jamaat group. If not, he will share it right now. And you can use that link to register online. If somebody does not wake up on time for Sehri, what should they do? If you are strong enough and you can just keep the fast, keep the fast. If you're not strong enough to do it this way, then pay the fidya, and after the month of Ramadan, the day you missed, you can keep that fast before the coming of the next Ramadan. But don't make this a practice. Some people, what they do is, they say, oh, I'm too tired, so I'll just skip the Sehri and I'll just do At Pera Roda. This is called At Pera Roda. Don't make this the norm. This isn't right. There is barakah, there is blessing in suhoor, there is blessing in iftar. So do not skip on these things. Many times you'll see people, they will say, even if they're not fasting, they'll say, oh, I'll definitely take part in it because I don't want to be a kafir. As if you don't do iftari, it will make you a kafir. It's a joke some people have made. But the point is that Holy Prophet ﷺ has said, Inna fi suhuri barakatuh. That Sehri has barakah. So why should you deprive yourself of the barakah from Allah Almighty in this specific special month? So wake up for Sehri. And someone who doesn't wake up for Sehri, chances are they didn't wake up for Tahajjud Salat either. What kind of a fast would it be without Tahajjud Salat? Khalifa Rabi Rahimahullah Ta'ala has mentioned that when he was a child, this is what he saw around him in Qadian. That the mothers would wake up kids who were not to be fasting. They would still wake up kids because the kids wanted to partake in the blessings of Ramadan. And the mothers would wake the kids up in time for them to read at least 2 rak'ah of nawafil for tahajjud. At least 2. And then come and then partake in the sehri. So eating food is secondary. Sometimes we miss the point. Sometimes we think, okay, Ramadan is the mahina, it's the month of samosa and pakode. It's not. Some people say, oh, until we eat kachoriyan, we don't get that vibe. The vibe of Ramadan doesn't come from what you eat. The vibe of Ramadan comes from what it is that you're willing to give up for the sake of Allah. You can eat all these lavish foods afterwards. Islam doesn't stop you from eating these things. But don't be a person who ends up gaining weight in the month of Ramadan. Imagine if you end up gaining weight while you're fasting. It's the exact opposite of what Ramadan is supposed to be. Okay, I already mentioned about the use of toothpaste. If this question was asked, can somebody use toothpaste to brush their teeth while they're fasting? The answer is yes, you can. Just don't swallow it. Once you brush your teeth with the toothpaste, rinse your mouth thoroughly and you're good to go. If your mouth bleeds internally or you have gum problem and because of that your gums bleed, if it is serious, don't fast. If it is non-serious, don't swallow the blood, spit it out, and your fast doesn't break. I have mentioned about traveling in the month of Ramadan, so I'm not going to go in detail about that today. Anyone who missed that, you can watch yesterday's dars, which is available on our Masjid YouTube channel, Masjid Mahmood. You can watch it from there. Okay, one question that I had received was, if an individual has to travel and when they go to their destination and they're there for a few days and they will have food available, but they're technically traveling, right? For example, sometimes we travel to attend a conference on the West Coast, right? And you go to attend the conference for 3 days or 4 days or whatever it is. And now that you're there, you have the option of doing sehri and iftari. So what's the fatwa? The fatwa is technically you're still in safar. So here you have 2 options. Number 1, you take benefit from the rukhsah that Allah has given you, the leniency that Allah Ta'ala has given you, and pay the fidya and keep the missed number of fasts afterwards. The other option is, if you have food available, and when you go there, you're local, you're stationary, you can keep the fast if that's what you want. So you have both the options. And if you're at a certain location for 15 days or more than that, then you definitely need to keep them. Because then in that situation, you're considered muqim, you're considered stationary. Regarding fidya, I've already touched upon that. Someone who willfully does not keep fast. Someone who breaks the fast willfully, there is a kafara for that. You have to fast 60 days. If you willfully, without any proper reason, just because you felt like eating something nice, you're like, okay, forget the roza, I can do this later. And you break your roza, that carries a punishment. And the kafara for that is, expiation for that is, now you gotta fast 60 days. So don't do that. Someone who doesn't even fast because they just don't want to fast, there is no expiation. What they should do is, they should sincerely repent from this practice of theirs. There is a narration from the life of Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. There was a companion. In fasting, the marital relations are not allowed. So there was this companion, and he came to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He said, "Ya Rasulullah, I've made a mistake. I went to my wife, and what should I do?" So the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Well, the Sharia is pretty clear. The kafara for breaking the fast willfully is that now you gotta fast 60 days." So the man said, "Ya Rasulullah, I couldn't fast a single day, let alone 60 days. So what should I do?" So Holy Prophet said, "Well, in that case, then, give the fidya." He said, "Ya Rasulullah, I'm a poor man. I don't have money." So Holy Prophet said, "Okay, fine. Here, some dates from me. Here, just go give these to somebody who's poor." He's like, "Ya Rasulullah, I'm the most poorest man in Medina." So that day, that man walked away with, dates from Holy Prophet. Inhaler, use of inhaler while you're fasting. If you're using an inhaler while you're fasting, that means you're sick, which means fasting is not for you. Pay the fidya, and when you're healthy enough, then you can keep the fast that you missed. Vaccination. Can you get a vaccine shot while you're, fasting? Once again, remember the rule, anything entering the body would break the fast. So getting a vaccination or any other shot or receiving blood or, taking medication is going to break the fast. So if you have the option of getting it, after iftar time or before sehri time, well and good. If not, then either don't get that vaccine at that time, wait until after Ramadan, or if you have to get it, then don't fast on that day, pay the fidya, and the day that you missed, you can keep that fast after. Question related to Shawwal fasts. So Shawwal is the month that comes right after the month of Ramadan. And Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam on the first of Shawwal would observe Eid al-Fitr, right? And from the second Shawwal to the 7th of Shawwal, 6 consecutive days, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam would fast. So he had the entire month of Ramadan for fasting, and then the day of Eid you skip it, you don't fast on that. And then the 6 consecutive days after that, from 2nd Shawwal to 7th Shawwal, Holy Prophet ﷺ would fast. And he said that fasting in these days is like 10 fasts in any other days. So you take 30 fasts from Ramadan, multiply that by 10, that's 300. You take the 6 days of Shawwal, multiply that by 10, that's 60. So that's 360. So someone who keeps the entire month of Ramadan and the 6 days of Shawwal, it is as if that individual has kept fast the entire year in terms of sawab and reward. These 6 days of Shawwal, the masnoon way is that we do it from 2nd to 7th of Shawwal. But if for some reason you're unable to do it in consecutive order, then you can break them up over the course of the entire month. That's fine. But what's preferred is from 2nd of Shawwal to 7th of Shawwal. What about the Ramadan fasts that you miss? Because Shawwal fasts are optional, Ramadan fasts are not optional. They're mandatory. So wouldn't the mandatory fast, the ones that you end up missing, be completed first versus these ones? Well, the thing is, you have until the coming of the next Ramadan to complete the fast of Ramadan which you missed this year. But you don't have that option for the Shawwal Roza. So that's why from the 2nd to the 7th of Shawwal, keep the Shawwal fasts, and whatever of the Ramadan that you missed, you can do that, later in the year. Holy Prophet ﷺ's practice was that the fasts he missed in the month of Ramadan, he would keep them in the month of Shaban, just before Ramadan. He would, keep those missed fast during that time frame. Jumatul Wida. So there is this concept among non-Ahmadi Muslims that the last Friday of Ramadan holds some sort of greater value than all the other Fridays of the year. And this is a man-made concept. There is no such thing as Jumatul Wida. The word doesn't appear in any verse of the Holy Quran. The phrase doesn't appear in any hadith of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. It was made up way afterwards, where people started saying Jummatul Wida, that Ramadan is going, it's saying Tata bye bye. So this is the Jummah that you make sure you don't miss. Even if you don't show up to the masjid for the entire year, even if you don't offer any single Jummah throughout the year, as long as you show up for this Jummah, the last Jummah of Ramadan, then somehow you're set. All your prayers you missed, you don't have to worry about it. All the Jummahs that you missed, you don't have to worry about it. It's false, and I can prove it. There is a hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in which he said that do not skip 3 Jummahs in a row. Because when you do, Allah places a dark spot on your heart, symbolic way. What that dark spot does is that it eventually engulfs or envelops your entire heart in darkness. It becomes bereft of any hidayah and nur and guidance. Now, if Jummatul Wida had any truth behind it, Holy Prophet ﷺ would not have said that don't skip 3 Jummahs. He would have said skip all you want, just make sure you don't skip Jummatul Wida. So Jummatul Wida is wrong, but unfortunately Jummatul Wida is the Jummah where across the board we see the maximum attendance. So one practice we can do is we can reach out to our friends and family members who come to this masjid and tell them, look, you want to follow the sunnah of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam? Come to this Jummah. Come to every Jummah. Don't specify the last Jummah of Ramadan and give it any higher significance than any other Jummahs of the year. Khalifa Rabi' Rahimahullah used to say that the practice among the non-MDs and maybe even some MDs as well is such, unfortunately, is that they think that if you do Jummatul Wida, then you're basically, saying for the next year until the next Jummatul Wida, you're saying bye-bye to all the good things that you're supposed to do, that you don't need to do them. Hence the term Jummatul Wida. He said instead of Jummatul Wida, we should celebrate Jummatul Istiqbal. That we should welcome this Jummah in such a way that it makes us better worshippers of Allah Ta'ala. That once the Ramadan ends, it shouldn't be that the masjid is empty. The masjid should have become even more filled with the worshippers of Allah Ta'ala. Somebody asked this question about smoking while in itikaf. Smoking while in itikaf, obviously. So the fatwa that Mufti Sisla has given is that after iftar time, you can go outside the masjid. If you really need to smoke and you can live without it, then, maybe go to a washroom or something like that and then do whatever you need. But this shows the detest that an individual should have towards these things. I mean, in the month of Ramadan, we're trying to get closer to Allah. And there is a hadith of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam where he says, a person who gives off foul odor, angels of Allah Ta'ala does not get closer to that individual. I mean, in the month of Ramadan, we're trying to get closer to Allah Ta'ala. And one of the signs by which we know that we're getting closer to Allah Ta'ala is getting close proximity with the angels of God. Allah के फरिश्ते नाजिल होते हैं. आपको महसूस होता है कि खुदा के फरिश्ते आपके पास हैं. सफाई निसफ ईमान रखी गई. क्यों रखी गई? इसीलिए ताकि खुदा के फरिश्ते आपके पास हैं. रमजान में रोजे भी रखने हैं. हीरो शीरो बन के तैयार भी होना है. एतकाफ भी बैठना है, लेकिन फिर जाके सिगरेट पीना है. तो वो सारी नेकियां के ऊपर पानी फेरने वाली बात है. Someone who is on oxygen, if they need oxygen, they use oxygen tank or oxygen mask. Can they use it while they're fasting? Well, you're sick enough to be on oxygen, you shouldn't be fasting. Individuals sometimes say that, what about itikaf? Can they do itikaf for 3 days or 4 days or 5 days? Sure you can, but that's not the Masnoon itikaf. Masnoon itikaf is for 10 days and it begins before the Fajr of 20th of Ramadan. Let me plug in the itikaf drive. We are highly encouraging individuals to sit for itikaf in this masjid. So if you are an adult, please consider sitting for itikaf. It's the sunnah of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Try to at least sit at least once in your... and experience what the blessings that are associated with this last ashra of Ramadan. You're not only going to be, giving up on this world and just sitting in seclusion, just worshipping Allah Ta'ala and focusing on your God connection. But those are also, it just so happens that those are the days for Laylatul Qadr as well. Imagine how lucky would you be that you sit for itikaf in this masjid and you dedicate your time, your days and nights for the worship of Allah Ta'ala, and Allah Ta'ala shows you Laylatul Qadr, grants you Laylatul Qadr. Allah Ta'ala says, it is better than 1,000 months. 1,000 months is a little more than 80 years, an entire lifetime. You can earn an entire lifetime of goodness by sitting itikaf in 10 days. It's possible. That's what I'm saying. So, give this, a consider. And adult males and females all are encouraged. If you want to sit for itikaf, I believe Secretary Saab Tarbiyat Azhar Saab has shared the itikaf registration form. Anyone who's interested, you can sign up using that form, and we'll notify you once your application gets approved. I'll end the dars here so that now I can take live questions. Yeah. Wow.
Muhammadur Rasulullah.